Has a degree from Huntington College in Montgomery. Just going to talk to us about feminism.
Hello, everyone.
Good morning.
It's kind of hard to say what exactly got me into feminism. It was more of a process than it was one individual event. To start, my parents never really encouraged me to be the stereotypical Barbie-playing, princess-loving girl. While I did play with Barbies and I loved Disney princesses, I was also running outside, scraping my knees, breaking my leg, and racing boys on bikes that ended up with my face skidding across the street. So hey, at least I won. I was also known as somewhat of a bully at school. Not your stereotypical bully, but rather the morally just bully. Think Batman. I would beat up, in elementary terms, other bullies that were picking on innocent classmates. So when you examine my past, it isn't too hard to see why I am the way I am today. Even though in elementary school I never knew about feminism, my events in life continued with women always as the underdog. And that resulted in strengthening my critical thinking skills along with my analysis on the role in society and how I'm perceived in it. As is natural, the more I learned, the more passionate and active I became in trying to change and spread the awareness of the oppression of women. With all the women's issues movements and attacks on women being the main topic of current events, it was somewhat overwhelming to decide what to talk about in this broad topic of feminism, and how to explain my perspective of feminism clearly, which is Marxist feminism. It is apparent that this new generation of feminism is much more economic and political than it has been in the past. So the theme of this talk will be on feminism and its political involvement. I decided not to talk in depth about individual issues like race culture, gender roles, equal pay, midwives, etc., the list could go on, because I believe that if we all come to realize the one thing that produces these issues and fix that, well then I wouldn't be having this talk. So I chose to break it down into 3 parts. First, I'll briefly cover the history of feminism, then I will explain and critique the different subgroups of feminism while providing a Marxist solution, and finally I will conclude with my analysis on the best type of feminism. Each wave of feminism has fought for the same issues we are still fighting for today. The reason why it has been drug out is the same reason we still have racism, environmental destruction, anti-union laws, and ableism. It is because the system is designed that way, to oppress us so they can rest on us, rest on our hard earnings. If we were free from all isms, there wouldn't be any rich, and they know that. So we can't address sexism without addressing economic oppression, because sexism and all isms are produced out of economic oppression. I will elaborate on the subject throughout the talk, so go ahead and get used to it. Historically, there has been 3 waves of feminism, and every wave has something similar as they do in contrast with each other. The first wave of feminism took place in the late 19th and earliest 20th centuries. As society was emerging into urban industrialism, it brought along many opportunities, but they were blocked from women and only given to the able-bodied white man. Women like S.M.V and Rosa Luxemburg recognized this injustice and began the ideas of feminist socialist politics. The goal was to open up opportunities for women, like voting rights and jobs with a focus on suffrage. The women fighting for these basic rights were given a lot of slack in their communities. Anti-suffrage propaganda was distributed and posted all over town, portraying cartoons of the suffrage women as ugly, hateful, and manly. Once women got the right to vote, their battle was still present, but it was no longer on the front lines. The second wave began in the 1960s and continued into the 90s. This wave unfolded in the context of the anti-war and civil rights movement. In this phase, sexuality and reproductive rights were dominant issues, but because it was focused on social, individualistic issues rather than demands for system change, it was easily watered down by male-dominated politics. Even though this phase was seen as radical, because of its limitations, we have seen an attack on women, resulting in backlash instead of progress, like the recent anti-abortion bills that have been passed in multiple states that have the potential to reverse Roe versus Wade. The third phase of feminism began in the mid-90s and is informed by post-colonial and postmodern thinking. Because the third wave learned from the past lessons of the first and the second, it began to associate the subjugation of women with broader critiques of capitalism. Sex and gender were differentiated, the former being biological and the later is a social construct that varies from culture to culture and over time. The third phase has been able to draw in not only women, but also men in developing nations, seeking solidarity, claiming a woman's struggle is a class struggle. Where feminism goes after this is the true debate, because there's so many divides between feminism. I will start with a definition that I agree with. Feminism is the theory of political, economic, and social equality of the sexes. This encompasses the general and most beneficial idea of feminism. Yet, it isn't that simple. How do we get there? There's so many different opinions, perceptions, and ideas of feminism, it's hard to see how the program is going to achieve the ultimate goal of equality. In order to explain to you clearly why Marxist feminism is the most effective program, I must explain the limitations of other subgroups. There are men-hating feminists who have been victimized past the trust of the male gender and believe that the only way to be free is to oppress men and be completely cut off and detached from men. However utopian this may sound, it's not reality. A feminist Marxist would say that we need to help men understand and empathize with women's issues in order for them to become active in the women's struggle to reach equality. This is in no way saying that women need men as some sort of codependence in our daily lives. It's just the fact that a mass collective movement is a lot stronger than a lone one. Not to mention when a feminist man has the ability to call out another man's sexist actions, the critique will be a lot more effective if it's a man coming from another man, instead of the man just excusing the woman as being sensitive. More men should feel that they have a duty to speak up, but if you don't involve them in the struggle, then they won't feel the need to speak up. Personally, I think the most important critique of this feminism is to realize that women's oppression is not the men's fault. It's the system's fault that gives privileges to a select few. Therefore, we need to direct the blame to the true source of sexist oppression and not point the blame to the men. This feeds exactly into the system's hands. If we keep blaming each other for inequalities, then we will forever be too distracted to see the true source of the blame, and the 1% can keep on paying women less than men, while women are busy blaming men. However, it is important for women with broken confidence and trust due to men to have a safe place to gain political education and self-confidence. This is why groups like women's caucuses and women-only blogs are essential and important. But we must remember to balance and not take it to the extreme of separatism. Then there are idealistic or liberal feminists who term themselves as womanists. They claim to command rights instead of demanding their rights. They believe that equality of the sexes can be attained without involving themselves in politics or protest. They believe that portraying an individualistic example of a strong, independent woman, that all social, economic, and political justices and equality will follow shortly after. While it's important to be a strong, smart, level-headed feminist on a daily basis, it's delusional to think that a system will grant us equal power by exerting our individual actions. A Marxist feminist is a materialist, believing that materials form our ideas and social constructs. Ideas do not materialize themselves. So this idealistic theory would not work because we need to change the material system that we live in, and it won't be changed out of ideas, but rather when the material is changed, then ideas will follow. Then there's the libertarian 1% feminist. Classical libertarian feminism conceives of freedom as freedom from covert interference, or in other words, taking power against other people's well-being. They also tend to believe that the rest of the world's gender problems isn't our place to change their traditions because it's just their culture. This idea is flawed. Women's global oppression is a human rights issue that everyone should take a part in. At the same time, it's important not to be imperialistic and seem parental, portraying ourselves coming from first world privileged American feminists. That is why Marxist feminists emphasize international political and cultural education so that we can understand their perspectives and oppression before acting. Another term of this group of feminists is individualist feminism, and it's exactly what it sounds like. A woman working and achieving only for herself and not for the whole society. This type of feminism does not fight for women of all ethnicities, since it explicitly favors the white female, since she, due to historical privileges, has more opportunities and will more than likely be the exception to the rule of a successful woman. And then the 1% media uses this example of the exception of the rule to the struggling women, claiming, see, if she can do it, so can you. All these different subgroups of feminism have contrasting ideas, but they also have a similar theme. Not only do they fight for women or a certain type of woman, they also have no class analysis and no alternative solution to the crisis. A good example of the limits to all these different types of feminism is the slut walk. For those of y'all that don't know, this march happens where women come out dressed provocatively and march on the streets as a symbol to stop calling women sluts for what they wear and how women should not be scared of rape or get raped just because of what they wear. A Marxist feminist would support this and march with these women. However, we understand that while these movements may raise consciousness and create a sense of solidarity and confidence, their demands do not go far enough, and it does not provide any true alternatives to these problems. How does it point out class issues and systematic sexism? How does it talk about broader women's issues? How does this movement reach out to all women across the globe? Disabled women, African Americans, Asian women, Turkish women, even conservative women. These movements can be powerful, but for the sake of feminism, we need to recognize its limitations. Some responses from Black feminists have accused slut walk from being exclusionary to women of color, saying, as a Black woman, I do not have the privilege or space to call herself slut without validating the already historical entrenched ideology and recurring messages about what and who the Black woman is. Slut walk can appear imperialistic of Western feminist ideologies in countries such as Brazil and Honduras. No equivalent term of the word slut exists in these areas, and so the aim to reappropriate the word is thus lost. This specifically points out the shortcomings of idealistic feminism. If we do not take an international Marxist feminist approach and study global perspectives, then we won't be able to touch on all of women's issues and point out the root of the problem, which is the material world of capitalism that we function under, and not some kind of ideological problem with the mindset of humans. It might seem that I might be backtracking here, but that point brings me to the point of my analysis that sexism cannot be fixed by actions alone. Because sexism is a symptom of our current government, and just like it was not always around, neither was sexism. For some, this might be the first time you've heard this, but actually, this historical analysis has been around since the days of Marx and Engels. They both refer to a time called primitive communism, basically meaning that all discriminations and classisms that we experience today did not exist in those days, simply because everyone had to work together in order to survive. So whereas most people might believe that women stayed in the tribe, telling stories, having children, and taking care of youth, because that's what's biologically natural for females, they are mistaken. There is actually proof that women were hunters, soldiers, medicine doctors, and farmers. As a matter of fact, women invented agriculture. Only when this phase ended to the population growth due to surplus labor and resulted in an abundance of goods is when classes began to emerge. Certain families would hoard all the goods produced and pass them down to only their heir, or would teach them certain trades, and therefore jobs became separated and became an idealistic status instead of a benefit for society. Those that were lucky enough to be born into royalty and had all of Maslow's hierarchical needs provided by the working class below them started to become divided, unaware, and apathetic to the rest of the community that they lived in, just like we're still seeing today. The transition out of primitive communism into classism is also when women became private ownership to men, with things like forced marriages and for economic reasons, using women's reproductive cycle as a means to keep success in the family, even murdering a mother's child if it wasn't fit for heir. Rape was also encouraged as a way to maintain male dominance. And even though it was worse back then than it is now, not much has changed when you look internationally. We must get to the root of the problem. That will not only fix sexism, but also racism, ableism, environmental destruction, homophobia, and working class oppression worldwide. Instead of exerting all our energies to fix these separate symptoms that the ruling class produces, we can and must collectively put our force into getting rid of the problem that produces all these symptoms and implement a true alternative solution. In fact, radical means to the root. So when I call myself radical, I'm addressing the root, the true source of the problem. So now I'll move into Marxist feminism. To start, Marxist feminism is international, the belief that men are oppressed by the system too, so we do not exclude them in our demands. Marxist feminism focuses on the social institutions and current government to explain and criticize gender inequality and oppression. Private property gives rise to economic inequality, dependence, political and domestic struggles between the sexes, and is the root cause of women's oppression in the current social context. The system privileges working men in order to secure and reinforce the interests of the ruling class. By doing so, they can legitimize the refusal to pay for domestic labor assigned to women, like child rearing, cooking, cleaning. Marxist feminists have extended traditional Marxist analysis by stating that domestic labor is deserving of a wage. While Marxist feminists will fight for every beneficial reform that is out there right now, like the slut walk, we will always provide critical support so that we can educate the masses that reforms under the current system will not solve anything, like Obama's health care reform. Even though I'm able to get free birth control, it's the lowest quality, and I have to go through a migraine just to get it ordered. Just through this example alone, you can see that reforms will never be fully accessible to, or easily accessible to the working class. They are not international, and they will be reversed once the working class once the working people become complacent, just like we're seeing with the abortion clinics. So what exact demands do Marxist feminists make that sets them as the best option to reach global equality? Well, frankly, there is a lot, and there are a lot of problems to address. So I encourage you to visit our website and read them. It explains how we plan to how to reach these demands as well. But for now, I chose to pick a few that were more relevant to women's issues. While I'm reading these, keep in mind that these demands are issues that are being fought for right now, but will not be granted under this current system. That is why we need a new system with these rights implemented from the very beginning. Equal pay for equal work. Give women the right to choose whether and when to have children. Publicly funded single-payer health care system with free reproductive services, including all forms of birth control and safe, accessible abortions. Comprehensive sex education. Paid maternity and paternity leave. Fully subsidized, high-quality child care. This would provide a solution to all of women's health issues. Women that used to have to go to low-quality clinics for annual checkups will now have the same quality treatment as the rest of society because health and family planning are taken care of. She will now be a more productive citizen to society. Not to mention, socialized health care will not only help women, but all people. No budget cuts to social services. Full funding for all community needs. Raise the federal minimum wage to a living wage for all. A minimum guaranteed weekly income of $500 a week for the disabled, stay-at-home parents, the elderly, and those that are unable to work. If we implemented these demands, then a stay-at-home mother could provide for her family and have economic equality in her marriage. And the father could spend more time with the family instead of having to work 2 jobs just to feed his wife and children. Free high-quality public education from preschool through college. Full funding for schools and dramatically lowered the teacher-student ratios. Not only would this improve everyone's life, but there's a statistic that shows that the more education one has, the less likely they are to have an early or unplanned pregnancy. So therefore, through this demand, women who once couldn't afford it would now be able to get an education, and therefore would be less likely to start a family, and wouldn't be stuck in poverty with a family that she can't provide for. Shorten the work week with no less pay and benefits. Share out the work with unemployed to create jobs. Shortening the work week would not only give jobs to the unemployed, and not only would it improve the lives of everyone, but it would also free up time to spend with our families, fathers and mothers. I want to end with a quote that might tie all this together for you. The worker is the slave to the capitalist society, and the woman is the slave to that slave. James Connolly.
You don't get to leave yet.
I have a question and kind of a...
Can I start over the recording thing? So I'm recording it for Mark.
Yeah, okay.